This one's going to be tough, guys. And I'm not one to get too emotionally wound up over news. I remember back in the days when Prince died and all the people getting on Twitter, oh, the Prince died. I don't know how I'm going to get out of bed this morning. I'm so distraught. And I'm thinking, who gives a shit? You didn't know him. He wouldn't have cried if he'd heard that you died. And so I don't get too wound up over these things. I hate that, this might show graphic violence. Some of our viewers might be disturbed. I'm like, go ahead and play it. Hell, I can handle it. This one's a little tough, though. The heading says, a teen told a judge he didn't set a man on fire. Police say he admitted it to them. Hello out there. I am trying to get through.
With his powerful brainwaves cradled in the warmth of reasoning, it's time for Johnnie Walker Dread to straighten you out on a thing or two. Emanating all the way from exciting Las Vegas, Oklahoma, it's the Johnnie Walker Dread Show.
All right, let's take a look at this.
Smother the flames from the clothing and body of 53-year-old Stephen Amenhauser. Rochester police say his body had been doused in flammable liquid. According to an investigator with Rochester Police, 16-year-old Xavier Perry admitted that after the victim was covered in flammable liquid, he did attempt to ignite the floor area near the victim. The other participant in the crime did then set fire to the victim. Rochester police say after the recent death of his wife, Stephen Amenhauser was despondent and had no family to turn to. He was set on fire while sitting in a chair in his apartment. The accused 16-year-old appeared virtually in court from the Children's Detention Center. He held his head in his hands, saying repeatedly, "I didn't do it," and then, "I didn't kill him." Police say 14-year-old Adriel Riley Jr. was at the scene when they arrived and made oral admissions there. He has a record in family court. In September, he was charged with robbing a victim at knife point in Gates, a second robbery a month later in the city. Then in January, police say both Riley and Perry were caught together in a stolen car.
Nobody is winning. Nobody is winning under the present system.
Gates police are now also going after the parents for child endangerment. Riley's mother was charged in that September robbery incident, his father in connection with the stolen car.
Keep in mind, he is 16 years old. He's been involved in 2 robberies and a car theft.
This has got to stop. At some point, the police can't be the parents for these kids. So someone's got to step up and intervene.
But notice how he's described as a kid, as a young kid, 16. Well, who else was a minor? I don't recall too many people giving out too many excuses for him. And you know who I'm talking about. He didn't do anything anyway. He was shot in self-defense, but okay. Let's go and read a little bit here. So in an outburst during a virtual court appearance from the 16-year-old accused of setting a man on fire, "I didn't kill him." Xavier Perry and some 14-year-old. Yeah, a 14-year-old, by the way, involved in intentionally burning a man to death. Yeah, let that sink in a little. Are accused of intentionally setting Stephen Amenhauser on fire on March 12th. 53-year-old man died 4 days later. So they're being held at the Monroe County Children's Detention Center. Each has pleaded not guilty, and a judge ordered them held on no bail and no release. Okay, and then talks about the mail carrier's coat. A mail carrier tried to put out the fire, by the way, tried to save the man's life, and they're talking about his coat is still out there on the street. The police said he was doused in a flammable liquid. An investigator said both teens made spoken admissions at the scene. Court documents said Perry also made admissions in a written statement. By the way, go watch that video titled "Don't Talk to the Cops." The police officer there, that's part of the overall presentation, talks about how he gets written statements out of people. Really good read. Affidavit by the investigator said that Perry admitted that after the victim was covered in liquid, he did attempt to ignite the floor area, and the other participant in the crime that set fire to the victim. Well, if they have a felony murder law in that state, and I would have to check out and see, it ain't going to matter for him because arson is a felony. Records show the teen and his mother waived their Miranda rights to an attorney before the statement. Now, why in the hell would they do that? That just makes no sense at all. That's really dumb. But what can you do? I mean, and the teen was with his mother. They agreed on this. So the mother is an adult. I don't know. I mean, I would never have allowed my kid to waive their Miranda rights. Okay, and they mentioned about the man's death. I guess he had undergone some mental trauma, and he was sitting in his chair when they, I guess, sneaked into his house and set him on fire. Suffered second and third degree burns over 70% of his body. Don't know the motive. Both teens appeared virtually in court Wednesday from the Children's Detention Center. And the one teen says, I didn't do it. I didn't do it. A few minutes later, he stood and said, I didn't kill him. That's actually probably not a very good thing to do in court, to yell out, I didn't kill him. Well, you didn't say you had nothing to do with it. You said you didn't kill him. So again, he's going back on this idea that although he was trying to set fire to the floor, he wasn't the one that actually set fire to the body. That's not going to do him any good in court. Police say Riley also made oral admissions at the scene. Okay, and again, they mentioned he was charged with robbing a victim at knife point, and then another robbery report. In February, Gates police said both Riley and Perry were found in a stolen car. So the 14-year-old was involved in the theft of the car, I assume. I mean, it could be that Riley wouldn't just picked him up, but, we'll see. On the night of the armed robbery, Gates police said Riley's mother rented a hotel room for the 14-year-old and some of his friends. Okay, I'm not sure what's going on there. After his arrest, police charged her with endangering the welfare of a child. So I have no idea what that was about. In the comments section, if you think you have an idea about what was happening there, go ahead. Keep in mind that you'll be guessing. In January, after the stolen car incident, Riley's father was arrested along with one of Perry's parents. Each are facing the same charge. Nice family we got going there. The police chief said the department will continue to hold parents responsible for the lack of supervision of their children. That seems to be kind of an issue here, doesn't it? This has got to stop. Police can't be the parents for these kids. Someone has to intervene. Earlier this month, a judge issued an arrest for the 14-year-old. He was still out of custody last Friday, the day the victim was set on fire. How much effort did they undergo to try to get this person into custody? That's a good question to ask. I don't know. If they had managed to get the kid into custody, this man would maybe still be alive. And this is one thing I always urge police. If you have warrants out, go get those people. On Monday, a judge will decide whether to send this case and one or both of the teens to family court or to keep it in youth court. Adult sentences are possible in this case. Okay, so there you have it. Now, it doesn't end there. I came across a news item here that puts a little bit of interesting twist on this. Okay, so let's take a look at the Daily Wire. Same crime here. 2 teens set mentally ill man on fire. If races were reversed, it would be a national story. Okay, now let's take a look and let's read here. 2 black teens have been charged with assault and arson in connection to the brutal death of a mentally ill white man in Rochester, New York. All of a sudden now we're bringing in race, but there's a reason for that, and I want to read this a little bit further. The 2 reportedly sneaked into the home of the man on Friday afternoon, sprayed him with an ignitable fluid, and set him on fire until 70% of his body was covered in second and third degree burns. Okay, that has nothing to do with this case. Let's go on. By the time the 911 call was made and police arrived, it was too late. The victim fought for his life for 4 days in a burn trauma unit before he passed. The story was reported by local station Wham 13 News, but the races of the individuals involved were not specified. Rochester journalist and radio host Bob Lonsbury made the races public and highlighted the double standards in news coverage that has contributed to the deterioration of Rochester. You remember, Rochester was engulfed in an, at times, violent campaign against police officers. Over what? Alleged racism. And so this looks like the tweet. The mentally ill white man set afire Friday by 2 black teens died this morning. Okay, so I guess that's how he exposed the races of the individuals involved. Citing law enforcement sources, Lonsberry reports that the teens instructed the victim during the incident to tell authorities that it was 2 white men who perpetrated the crime. Now, I'm not sure why the victim would go along with this. A police source confirmed Lonsberry's reporting to the Daily Wire. A man has died after suffering second and third degree burns over 70% of his body. Days after police say he was intentionally set afire by 2 teenage boys. Okay, so the rest of this already goes over what we know. Then Lonsberry noted Monday, if 2 white teens had set a mentally ill black man on fire last Friday on Lyle Avenue, how many floors at the Strathaland would be set aside for national media today? And I suppose the Strathaland is maybe the steps of the courthouse or city hall or something. As Lonsberry highlights, there has been a near blackout on any national reporting of the story, with a total blackout on the races involved. The New York Post and USA Today gave the report some air, but race was not mentioned. The races of those involved may not prove to be relevant in the end, as we do not yet have any motive. At this early stage of the investigation, there are no reported connections between the teens and the man. If police sources are correct, however, race was a factor when the teens reportedly told their victim to say he was set on fire by white men. Due to this claim, the racial connection is stronger than in many other national stories the media framed through a racial lens. They even had Kyle guilty of white supremacy because he killed 2 white people. It's just, that's the way things are gone. News reports of the incidents concerning Michael Brown, Freddie Gray, Eric Garner, and George Floyd, for example, were not shown to be connected to race, other than the media's injection of the issue into the tragic incidents. That's what this is all about here. I mean, look, I would prefer it if we never mentioned race at all. It doesn't matter. It shouldn't matter. The only time I think it should matter is if race was the motive. In a world where everything anymore seems to be about race, nobody wanted to mention the fact that the teens were black and the old man was white. And they watched him burn a bit after they sprayed him and lit him. And they told us to say it was 2 white guys who did it. Nobody will ask if it was a hate crime. Well, we're not sure about that, but I would probably put my money on it. Now look, we don't know if these kids did it. And they will have their day in court. If they didn't do it, then fine. However, not getting their lawyer is going to put them in a real bind there. They should never have done that. Both those kids should have gotten lawyers immediately, but they didn't, and they're almost certainly going to be saying things that are going to incriminate themselves. And I've always said it many times, don't talk to the cops. Talk to your lawyer. But the point is that there is a concerted effort to try to suppress a certain angle to make one race appear more volatile than the other. And in truth, there is nothing about this that even makes sense. White men or black men or whatever are no more inherently dangerous than the other. It's a perception that's media driven. Anytime a cop shoots a black man, what do we hear? Police brutality. Well, what if it's a white cop? We add on there, white cop shoots black man. However, if it's a black cop, it becomes just simply cop. Make out of this what you will. I think it's a terrible story. I mean, wow. I can't imagine what that poor man went through. Like my video and subscribe to my channel.